Cinemigos, fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. I'm Jaime En Fuego.
I'm Cecil Laird.
And yes, y'all, it has been a hot moment since we have been on this set to discuss a film. So yes, as opposed to doing single Enfuegotainment coverage of JAY Silent Bob Reboot, I had to get together with my partner in crime to discuss the return of Kevin Smith to the View Askewniverse. So bienvenidos, and I welcome you to Enfuegotainment and to our review of said film. That's right, JAY Silent Bob Reboots. And we basically come back upon a lot of familiar tropes, a lot of familiar jokes, and so as we always do here, we'll do a little bit of bueno, a little bit of malo, a little bit of feo, so good, bad, and ugly. And I guess if I'm going to say at least something bueno about this, because unfortunately my feelings are not as positive as I really was hoping that they would be coming out of this film, is that it is cool to get reacquainted and at least re-engage briefly, albeit with characters like Holden McNeil, you know, and none other than Mr. Ben Affleck, who just recently patched up his relationship with Kevin Smith after being kind of askew from each other for a little while, and also seeing like Matt Damon and I guess, you know, just various others, including Alyssa Jones, and I mean, just on and on. However, not as much of a narrative to put behind it, and it kind of took some of the luster out of these little just re-engagements of sorts. What good do you have to say about this film, man?
Well, we should point out that we did see it in a double feature with JAY Silent Bob Strike Back, so
Crucial
back
info.
to back.
Yes.
And this being a direct sequel to that, it was very apparent how much of it was used from the first one, but I will say the good for me was the Chasing Amy sequel towards the end of the movie.
That was actually heartfelt and solid.
Yeah, that was, you get about 12 minutes of a Chasing Amy sequel, and it's really good. It's really enjoyable, it's heartwarming, and it essentially is Kevin Smith saying what he feels like is important nowadays. Yeah, so that's what I'm going to say is the best thing.
And we have cats on set. Everybody.
Not for that long. And there we go. Out of frame.
Yes, out of frame. Perfection. So, yeah, I guess that was definitely the most heartfelt, and it was the most self-expressive, I guess, of the way Kevin Smith presumably feels at this time in his life as a filmmaker, as a father. It's a theme that really comes up a lot in this. And even if it was kind of clumsily handled, as you mentioned, it still did feel genuine, but I don't know. Anytime K. Smith tries to get too sentimental, and this even happened a little bit in the second Clerks film, I just didn't necessarily feel like it worked for just the tone that he's always gone for. And yet I'm okay with him going bonkers and strange with something like Tusk, and, you know, 100% violent and just weird with something like Red State. And he's a guy whose career I've followed for like 20-something years at this point, since the 90s when I first discovered Clerks and Mallrats and Chasing Amy, the, you know, initial trilogy that was further supplemented by, you know, Dogma and JAY Silent Bob and Clerks 2, and they're working on a Clerks 3 at this point with him patching things up with Jeff Anderson, which is cool, I suppose. But that gentleman, spoiler, is not in this movie. Jeff Anderson does not make an appearance, unfortunately. But
there's a few that I thought would that didn't. So yeah.
Well, I guess we can save that for the fam and any spoilers, perhaps in the very end that we want to touch upon. I didn't necessarily feel like Jay's performance was bad. It had a little bit more emotional weight during those said pieces that you mentioned. Even though it's not his scenes to own in the Chasing Amy, it kind of sparks a kind of self-reflection within him that turns into a plot point in the third act and everything. And so, yeah, Jay still has some acting chops in my estimation. He's not really...
Jay stepped it up in this, yeah.
He did, yeah. Once again, K. Smith is doing his own thing, although he does have dueling roles without spoiling anything in this, which is kind of amusing, but yet I can't say I necessarily liked it, and it's a little meta without revealing too much, I would say. And yeah, some of the self-deprecation is funny in the humor, you know. There is an acknowledgement of lack of quality of certain things that Kevin Smith has done since presumably wrapping up the whole View Askewniverse with Strike Back, 18 years ago, 2001, I want to say, was when that first film came out. But yeah, that is, as we segue, I guess, into, you know, Malo and bad stuff about this film, which I unfortunately do have more to say about. Watching the original, or at least the direct, you know, prequel to this, and this film right next to each other just made how glaring all of the callbacks were as far as like a lack of originality and
literal stolen jokes.
Yeah, over and over and over, and that's not
same wording even, not even just callbacks to jokes, but literally the same jokes with the same wording,
same musical cues,
same
everything.
musical cues, like. Same characters doing it most times too.
Oh yeah,
it really was, because you know he's really stretched. Not everyone likes what he's done recently, but with Red State and Tusk, and Yoga Hosers was not great, but with Red State and Tusk, like he really did stretch. And man, this was such a return to the old stuff that it just felt. It literally felt like you were just jumping from cameo to cameo rather than following any semblance of plot.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, there was a kind of a central plot. It felt like he was forcing the narrative of them going to stop the movie more than anything else. Like, I don't know. It's such a weird thing to behold this movie, because like I really, really was hoping it was going to be good. And you do see some folks from the past show up, and some of them play their parts well, but man, it's just I think we both agreed that it made us sad a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And not for the reasons they were trying to make us sad for. Like, they were trying to pull at your heartstrings, but this was just like, it just was showing like, man, look how old everyone's gotten, and they're not, you know, not everyone, like, they make fun of everyone's stuff. Like, there's a
Justice
funny,
still looks pretty good, I gotta
Justice
say.
still looks, well, even she, but
yeah, in the close-ups.
Yeah, but there was a funny Chipmunks joke, you know, like there was a couple of funny things,
My
but
dude Jason Lee.
but man, it just wasn't funny to me.
Yeah,
like, I really didn't. I was laughing a lot in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Maybe I had just forgotten a lot of it, but man, it was funny. And this one was just, it felt like it was, you know, I don't know. It felt like Kev got stoned and watched the first one and literally like, that's a good joke, I can put that in here. That's a good joke, I can put that in here. And then just kind of strung along the jokes and the cameos into some semblance of a line, not even a plot. And it just was a bummer to me, man.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you, man. And honestly, for me, like the more amusing cameos were people who were not in the previous movie. Like, I thought Fred Armisen, that's his name, right?
Yeah.
He was his bits were really funny to me, actually. That was some of the more amusing scenes within it. And, you know, everything did feel like just, okay, here's this cameo, here's that cameo. And it's, I mean, I guess the idea of it seems to me like it's more so like the journey than the destination, so to speak, within this film. But I don't know. Even the Jason Lee cameo, it was just, I mean, without spoiling too much here, obviously, it felt very much that there's this argument throughout the film of a remake versus a reboot, and what are the nuances and the differences between the two of those. And I don't know, this in some ways was, I don't even know what I would really classify it as far as either of the classifications go. So I don't know, but yeah, most of the humor fell flat for me, and it just really, I think coasting was the term that I used with you. And in some ways, I would even feel like this feels about as unnecessary as Rob Zombie's 3 from Hell, as far as another film that I feel like was made strictly to get your name out there, get more limelight, and so on. I can't say I've loved something that K. Smith has done since even Zack and Miri. I thought was him trying to just jump on the Judd Apatow.
Yeah, he even says he was.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I at this particular point, I guess if I'm going to segue into Feo and
well, no, not yet. Let me just say,
please.
Well, I guess this could count as a Feo, so that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll just save it for the Feo then.
Well, I mean, what I was going to say is that at least at this point, I think it's kind of ugly to admit that since I haven't liked his last couple of films very much, at this point, because I love Kevin Smith and I love his enthusiasm for popular culture, in some ways, I like him commenting on it more so at this point than actually creating it, and I really hate to admit that, but his priorities, I think, lie elsewhere, and yet he's like, you know, going to be showrunning He-Man, and he has all these other like little projects that are, you know, cooking here and there. And I know he's directed episodes of Arrow, and or Flash. What was it? Flash? Or was it
He's done a couple of Flashes, more Supergirl,
and Supergirl. That's the one.
Never done an
I
Arrow.
knew it was something in the CW verse of DC,
never
DC
did an
properties and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, maybe that's more so as opposed to telling stories. Like, maybe it's better for him to present other stories or comment, react, give thoughts, and so on. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for somebody who's been an inspiration to me since I first discovered, especially with maxing out all of his credit cards, the process of...
I feel like I got what I needed out of him inspiration-wise, though. Like, I'm not watching him for inspiration at this point.
No.
At least not his movies. Like, I'm watching his career as a podcaster and YouTuber and stuff like that.
Which is what he's probably more known for with younger people at this point, like his daughter's generation, for instance, you know.
But I have a couple of Feos. So I will say that maybe I'll focus on one. We'll see. The first one I'm going to focus on is that this is the single... Everyone that watches Jay and Silent Bob movies know that there's a moment where Silent Bob speaks. And this is the absolute worst use of Silent Bob speaking in any of the movies. It comes out of... This whole moment comes out of literally nowhere, and his speaking makes... I couldn't follow what the hell he was saying. He was just speaking nonsense to try and distract people.
Am I doing it right this time?
Yeah, you're doing it right this time. It's so bad, and it doesn't make any sense as to why it's even happening, to be honest with you guys. Yeah, we have another guest.
Yes.
It doesn't... it's the worst. I hated that. What about you?
It hadn't even occurred to me, just the futility of it. But yeah, it was definitely right there without really spoiling anything too much.
He's supposed to like be the most impactful stuff in each movie, basically. And this was such a waste. The most cathartic,
the most important, and they just lump another joke upon the fact that not as much was mentioned of importance in that regard.
I remember my other fail.
Yes.
So my other big fail is that a lot of times they are, good lord, guys, oh boy, it's going to turn into a cat fight in front of the camera.
It really is. You guys are privy to something incredibly amusing here.
So basically... A couple of times they poke fun at the fact they're even talking about reboots versus remakes and how reboots are different than remakes, but reboots are just like redoing a series, or remakes are redoing a series, but not changing anything except adding youth and diversity. And Kevin Smith does it by, he like pokes fun at it by doing it, but he does it poorly. The youth and diversity outside of Harley Quinn Smith are just horrible.
Yeah.
I don't like any of them. And especially when you get to the turn at the end of the movie.
Which is supposed to be surprising in some regard. And that was just like such...
It was so bad when you get to the accent that's being used. I'm like, am I watching the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling right now? Because that is literally the level of accent we're getting right now. It is so bad. The whole last scene, he even teased you with a really cool cameo, and then doesn't deliver on the cameo because it cuts away from the footage to a shitty third act. Pardon my French.
No, you're fine.
The third act of the first one was great because it was the bong saber fight, and it was fun. This was not fun at all.
Thinking that appearance was going to transpire, and it did not. And I was holding out hope that it was.
We just got the stupid Ocean's 12 bullshit. Right? And you know what I'm referring to.
I haven't watched Ocean's 12, so I don't know.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
well,
I haven't watched any of the Ocean's.
Let's just say that Julia Roberts, her character pretends to be Julia Roberts to get into a museum.
Wow.
Yeah. She pretends to be Julia Roberts. Julia Roberts pretends to be Julia Roberts. It's that, is that level of stupid that we got in this?
As far as meta being meta upon meta, yeah.
I'm so frustrated with how much I did not like this.
Yeah. Spoilers.
It's such a bummer.
Kevin Smith plays himself in this, but it's a slightly...
It's not Silent Bob. There's Kevin Smith and there's Silent Bob.
Yes. So he is, in fact, portraying a couple different roles. And, one of which, I mean, the version of himself is kind of a douched up, well, not super douched up, but like slightly douched up caricature of himself. And, I mean, the other fail that I was going to mention is the fact that, I guess you butcher your babies in certain instances, and there is a lot of slamming on stuff that he knows didn't work very well, from Jersey Girl to Cop Out, which was one of the only times he's directed something that he did not personally write. I think it's the only time he directed something that he did not personally write. And that was with Sean William Scott, Tracy Moe.
I have a Feo that is both a MALO and a BUENO.
Okay, well,
How's that?
Sure. Rock that shizzle proper.
So
sir.
the Feo is this. The first Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back movie had 20, and I know this because I listened to all of Kevin Smith's podcasts. It had 22 name cards in the credits, right? All the celebrity cameos.
Yes.
He said he doubled that, and there's 44 in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. However, in my opinion, the cameos and title cards in the first one were way better than all the other ones in the new one. Like the Will Ferrell part was so much better. Like all of the stupid cameos they got in this were just tiny bit. There was only one that was good, and it's a Marvel character that's really funny.
Yes.
But again, it's so rough to me because it's so transparent. Anyone that's actually a Kevin Smith fan that has followed him on all of his podcasts and stuff is going to feel like they've seen this movie before. Because every time Smith is on screen, especially as himself, he's spouting the Smithisms that we know. The, hey! Every time he goes onto a podcast, he has so many different things that he says so often, and that's his dialogue in this. And it's like,
he had to commit it to
I've
film,
seen this.
like properly.
I've seen this already. I've seen this already.
For the uninitiated, perhaps.
But okay, so that's a fail because the name cards, the 22 name cards, those cameos were way better than the 44 we got in this one. The malo of that is that it was a bummer to see some of them so wasted this time, right? A lot of the cameos were just who or why. What was the point of that?
Very throwaway.
The BUENO is the Marvel character. Oh, I was also going to say, the Feo is the fact that in the first Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he stole his ending from Star Wars. In the second Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he steals his ending from the other movie that he praises as like the greatest movie of all time since it came out and since it launched the Marvel Universe, right? Like, so he steals from that. So the positive, I would say, the only positive in regards to all the stunt casting is he does bring back Diedrich Bader. And Diedrich Bader does make a Hammers of Justice joke.
No,
which
the guy
you don't.
He was on Drew Carey, and he's on Whose Line Is It
He
Anyway,
also was Batman in Batman the Brave and the Bold animated series.
Okay,
and so he would talk about the Hammers of Justice.
Okay.
And so that was his joke. That's why he put in the Hammers of Justice, is because Diedrich Bader played Batman and he called his fist the Hammers of Justice.
You were the bomb in Batman, yo. Now
that was a funny one. And they did the exact again. We wouldn't have gotten that joke fully had we not watched the other one, because he did. We were the bomb in Phantoms, yo, and he's like, damn right, and they smack, and he's like, that's what's up. And then in the credits, they do the same thing. Affleck was the bomb Batman, yo. He's like, yeah, and they high five again. He's like, that's what's up, and he says the exact same. Again, it's just another example of how they say the exact same jokes, same exact wording of jokes as in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. It's so weird, but when you watch them back to back, it takes out so much of the impact of those jokes.
Yeah, it was like, it's where I ask myself, because I know it's a constant theme throughout the film. It was obviously deliberate, but was that deliberance a sign of just unoriginality, not a lot of ideas, and wanting to do this?
No, it was a sign of a stoned Kevin Smith thinking it's hilarious to redo those bits.
Yeah. Well,
in my opinion, that's what it is.
No, we most certainly tried, but dang, man, it's obviously not the end of the View Askewniverse, because he has recently, mended fences. Also with Jeff Anderson, he is working on a completely new Clerks 3 script in comparison with the one that I guess they folded some of those ideas into this film. And so, that's about the extent of it from there. But it just felt like a very just whimper of a send-off for a lot of these more like extended universe View Askew characters that we're not probably ever gonna see again. And while I appreciate the heartfeltness that Kevin was trying to put forth, I must say the ugliness is that I don't think he does emotional stuff very well, with the exception of Chasing Amy somehow, and I think that was because it was bleeding from a real life relationship in that regard, and a real life relationship that didn't work out with him and that Miss Alyssa Jones, why is her name totally eluding me? The actress who played Alyssa is also
Joey Lauren Adams.
Joey Lauren Adams, yeah. So that felt very self-expressive, I think, and maybe that's why it felt so real and so legitimate. And obviously Kevin Smith is a father now, and his daughter is all grown up, and she's getting herself into the industry and stuff too, and that's really what this becomes a commentary of. But it just sometimes the heartfelt doesn't work from Kev, and it just comes off as hokey a little bit. And in this case, it kind of did to me, and maybe that's, just, I don't know, cynical on my particular part.
I did like the symmetry of the idea that in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Harley Quinn played a really little Silent Bob, and then in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot,
Mom's gonna go get free cheese, okay?
Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, Logan, Jay's daughter, plays another daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
oh, that was so. I loved that.
That was good.
That really. Again, that whole 12 minutes was the best part of the whole movie.
It really was, because those are. I mean, it's the most dramatically celebrated of all of Kevin Smith's films, and
Although I will say the best joke of the whole movie was the last joke at the end of the credits.
Very end, the one with the gum. Locks.
The fact that it paid off the joke. It paid off the very first joke in the very first movie.
Yeah.
And that is symmetry to a T. That was the most beautiful symmetric joke I've ever seen in my life, and I laughed the hardest of the whole night. Out of all the laughs in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and all the laughs in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, that last joke made me laugh harder than all of the jokes in both all night. Because it was so funny that it's the explanation, and it's so simple, and how did none of us ever think of it?
Yeah, exactly.
It was so great.
A bunch of savages in that town, I
bunch
swear,
of savages in that town. Oh, Leonardo.
Yeah, but so, I mean, aside from the cameo smorgasbord, fest that this really turned into, it just felt uninspired, and I really hate to say that that's where the negative, and even more so the Feo and the ugly, comes back to that. Is Kev still going to do Moose Jaws? We don't know. I mean, he's been
struggling for funding for it, so.
which kind of makes sense with the response to Yoga Hosers, which we saw and reviewed together as well. So
not great.
I don't know, and this was not great either. So if you want to get nostalgic but yet have that bittersweet feeling, which is another ugly aspect.
If you want to make yourself feel old, then go and see what your contemporary. Because I was their age. When that Mallrats and stuff, I'm a little bit younger than them. I'm about 10 years younger than them, But man, I still feel like I'm aging. Well, I am aging at the same rate as them, and I feel like I'm the same age. So the movie makes me feel old. It's so old.
It's been 25 years even since Clerks, man. And I mean, both those guys are pushing 50 at this point.
There was a funny Mallrats joke with Brody, though.
Yes,
that was pretty funny.
He moved. Yeah. That was good. And,
goddamn Mallrats.
Yeah, and so that's the thing.
I didn't see any kids out there.
Yeah, there's probably enough to warrant if you're a big time Kevin Smith fan.
Go to a matinee.
Especially, exactly.
Go to a matinee.
Well, actually,
don't spend $15 on this.
Or how much on the road show that we still have tickets to.
Yeah, I know.
Oh boy.
I know. I know. I'm hoping in 2 months I'll have forgotten enough that it'll be worth it. Well, it's for the meet.
Maybe
it's not
with
a meet and greet. But.
Yeah, maybe with they're also doing stand up and stuff. So just to give some context here, guys, at the end of the review, they are doing a reboot roadshow, Kevin Smith and Jay Mewes, and so they're going to be going and doing, we're assuming, a speaking, comedy, whatever, back and forth before and presumably after. That's what they did when they did the groovy cartoon movie or whatever the hell it was, and saw that at the Improv when they were here. So yeah, I still love these guys, even if this did not give me necessarily what I was hoping for. There was some chuckles here or there that were amusing and memorable enough, but as a whole, everything it was trying to say, it didn't jive with me as much, and it really felt, I hate to say it, but kind of like a cash grab. So yeah, that's that is my final thought there. I don't know, I want to revisit Mallrats and Chasing Amy and some of the others, and maybe do some retro reviews of those in the upcoming future, and also revisit even Zack and Miri and Red State, which I didn't particularly enjoy that much, but I feel like it was the most different thing K. Smith has obviously ever directed. Holy hell, that's a very strange film. Even Tusk had enough comedic elements in it where it felt more like his stuff. But I guess that's going to be the end of the discussion, y'all. So I extend a grande gracias to the showrunner for the horror show that I have held my hat on for about 5 years at this particular point. So supremely stoked when we can have this sort of crossover thing going down. And we actually just this past week, if for whatever reason you're living under a rock and aren't seeing everything horror show related, Cecil launched a film that he has written and is intending on directing. He's going to give you some info about right now.
Yes, we launched Dylan's New Nightmare. It is a sequel, direct, unofficial sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare. It is a not-for-profit fan film, and we have Miko Hughes returning to play Dylan Porter, and it is produced by Womp Stomp Films, Vincent DeSanti, and shot by Rene Rivas. So it is a big project. We are super excited about it. Maybe Fuego will put a link in the description box, but if not, go ahead and check out the horror show anytime this month and you'll see a link to it.
Awesome, yes. Lots of extended coverage, giving context about the film and its continuity and the rest of the franchise, and behind the scenes stuff, you name it, lots of rad status business. And then also over the course of this year, since relaunching Enfuegotainment, I've had lots of Star Wars coverage leading up to the Rise of Skywalker. There was supposedly a new trailer, which is going to be coming in a few days, possibly Monday Night Football.
What happened? I thought it was supposed to be Monday.
It was supposed to be this past Monday, and me and CP were both wrong. It's presumably next Monday. And there's Boyega tweeting about it, all these different things. But yes, the two Star Wars novels that came out this past year, one about Padme, one about Dooku, I have reviewed both of those, as well as reviews of all of the prequels, some revisiting of Rogue One, and a few other aspects. So yes, check that stuff out, and then yes, obviously check out Dylan's New Nightmare on the Horror Show. But I guess that's going to be the end of the proceedings. We're going to let these cats take over the premises once again, but until the reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego Cinemigos. But I'm hopeful that we get to share more film palaver sooner rather than later. Peace.